Good evening. We begin with breaking news from the Persian Gulf. The Pentagon has confirmed that U.S. Marines are on high alert after Iranian forces interfered with commercial shipping lanes.
President Trump had the power to cripple Iran's economy within minutes, but he held back. He spared those targets because, under overwhelming pressure, Iran stepped away from the edge and accepted a ceasefire. But inside the Pentagon and across the waters of the Gulf, no one believed the danger had fully passed. Because in the Strait of Hormuz, one wrong move, one missile, one mine, one drone swarm could ignite a crisis powerful enough to shake the global economy in a single night. That is exactly why the United States Marine Corps moved into position, quietly, deliberately, and without fanfare. While diplomats talked and headlines shifted from one crisis to the next, Marine commanders were preparing for something far more serious, a decisive counterstrike designed not simply to respond to Iranian escalation, but to break it completely. The warning delivered to Tehran was direct. If Iran attempts to raise the stakes by laying new minefields, unleashing larger drone attacks, firing more anti-ship missiles, or trying to shut down the Strait of Hormuz altogether, the Marine Corps stands ready with a pre-planned response of overwhelming force. And this response is not just defensive. It is not a limited show of strength. It is a detailed offensive strategy built to destroy the remaining tools Iran could use to threaten the waterway and to force the Strait of Hormuz open under American-backed control. The message is unmistakable. Any attempt to choke this critical passage will trigger a response so powerful, so fast, and so coordinated that Iran could lose both its operational capability and its strategic leverage in a matter of days. Deep inside a heavily guarded forward command center on the Omani coast, planning teams from the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force worked around the clock under bright fluorescent lights. Screens filled the walls. Digital maps tracked every possible Iranian action in real time. Red threat markers glowed across the northern shoreline. Shipping lanes flashed with projected risk patterns. Intelligence feeds updated every few seconds. At the center of the room stood Brigadier General Victor Lang, facing an enormous operational display showing all possible escalation scenarios. New minefields appearing in shipping lanes, mobile anti-ship missile batteries repositioning along rocky coves, expanded drone launch sites hidden along the coast, fast attack boat swarms racing toward commercial tankers. Every likely scenario had been wargamed, stress-tested, and assigned a response. General Lang looked over his staff with calm, unshaken resolve. If Iran escalates, we will not simply contain it. We will dominate the battlespace, eliminate the threat, and restore freedom of navigation. Those words were not rhetoric. They were mission guidance. 3 counterstrike packages had already been fully developed and were ready for execution. Package Alpha focused on speed and shock. Its purpose was to seize and hold critical coastal high ground overlooking the northern shore of the strait. From those elevated positions, Marine forces could dominate key approaches, suppress hostile fire, and deny Iran the ability to operate missile teams and drone launch crews near the most sensitive corridor. Package Bravo centered on destruction from a distance. If Iran attempted to lay mines or intensify missile and drone attacks, Bravo would unleash coordinated strikes from air, sea, and land to destroy mine-laying infrastructure, launch points, radar systems, support depots, and transportation nodes used to sustain the campaign. Package Charlie was the heaviest and most dramatic option. If Iran tried to impose a total shutdown of the waterway, the Marines were prepared for a large-scale vertical and amphibious assault to physically seize the narrowest choke point of the strait and secure it by force. Different methods, same end state. The corridor opens, stays open, and remains protected. Inside the command center, officers reviewed timelines down to the minute. Fire support corridors, airspace deconfliction, casualty evacuation routes, ammunition expenditure rates, fuel logistics, electronic warfare coordination, rules of engagement, reserve activation windows. Every element was refined with relentless precision. This was not improvisation. This was a machine being assembled piece by piece for one purpose only: decisive action. Across multiple forward bases and aboard 3 amphibious-ready groups in the region, those plans were rapidly turning into visible movement. The 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Marine Divisions launched intensive final rehearsals. Infantry battalions ran full mission profiles across desert training grounds where mock Iranian coastal defenses had been constructed in detail. Trenches, bunkers, missile revetments, portside compounds, communications nodes. Boarding teams rehearsed ship interdictions, while assault companies practiced clearing hardened positions under timed conditions. Amphibious assault vehicle crews drilled rapid launches from the well decks of warships, transitioning from open water to beach assault in minutes. Water jets roared. Treads slammed into sand. Crews rehearsed disembarkation again and again until every second of delay had been burned out of the process. Above them, MV-22 Osprey squadrons flew repeated day and night sorties, refining low-visibility approaches, ridgeline insertions, rooftop landings, and coordinated troop drops under simulated enemy fire. Pilots trained to hug terrain, change altitude without warning, and place Marines exactly where they were needed in the smallest window of time. Heavy artillery batteries calibrated their guns for range, speed, and precision. Marine HIMARS units rehearsed rapid displacement drills, firing and relocating before simulated enemy drones could lock onto them. Logistics Marines worked through the night pre-staging mountains of ammunition, fuel bladders, medical kits, repair parts, rations, generators, and water systems. Thousands of pallets were arranged for immediate movement. Every container was tagged. Every route was mapped. Every delay was hunted down and eliminated. On the flight decks of amphibious assault ships, the tempo was even more intense. CH-53K King Stallion heavy-lift helicopters stood in rows with folded rotors. Cargo bays loaded with up-armored Humvees, towed artillery, communications packages, barrier material, and resupply pallets. Nearby, AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters and UH-1Y Venom utility aircraft underwent full systems checks. Deck crews loaded Hellfire missiles, Hydra rocket pods, cannon ammunition, and defensive countermeasure packs with disciplined urgency. Marine pilots reviewed their checklists twice. Crew chiefs walked the aircraft again and again, inspecting fasteners, hydraulics, fuel lines, avionics, rotor systems, and loading configurations. No one on those decks needed a briefing to understand what was at stake. If Iran crossed the line, these aircraft would be among the first instruments of a larger American response. Back in the planning rooms, the 3 primary strike scenarios were refined even further. In Scenario Alpha, new Iranian minefields would trigger a fast, violent helicopter-borne raid. A reinforced Marine battalion would launch from amphibious ships and forward sites to seize the coastal facilities responsible for supporting mine-laying operations. Ospreys would insert assault teams directly onto key objectives. Attack helicopters would suppress defensive strongpoints. Naval gunfire and supporting fires would isolate the battle space, cutting off reinforcements. Combat engineers would move in behind the assault force to destroy captured mine stocks, demolition equipment, launch rails, command posts, and transport assets. The objective would be simple: destroy the shore-based system enabling the mining campaign before it could expand. In Scenario Bravo, if drone and missile attacks intensified, Marine long-range fires would take the lead. HIMARS batteries would rapidly occupy pre-selected firing positions and strike deep inland launch sites, support depots, mobile radar units, communications hubs, and relocation routes. F-35B stealth fighters operating from amphibious carriers would suppress air defenses, gather targeting data, and strike time-sensitive targets before they could move. Electronic warfare units would jam, confuse, and blind Iranian sensors, while naval forces extended the kill chain across the maritime domain. This would not be a symbolic reply. It would be a systematic dismantling of the network behind the attacks. Scenario Charlie was the option no one wanted to use, but everyone prepared for. If Iran attempted a full closure of the strait, more than 8,000 Marines could be committed to a massive, multi-pronged operation. Amphibious landings would hit selected coastal sectors, while vertical envelopment inserted Marines inland using Ospreys and King Stallions. The goal would be to seize and hold the most critical narrow section of the waterway, establish defensive positions, suppress hostile launch zones, and physically guarantee that commercial traffic could pass. It would be one of the most consequential maritime operations of the modern era. What made all three plans so dangerous was not only their firepower, but their speed. Marine doctrine in this scenario was built around tempo, shock, and sustained pressure. Strike faster than Iran can reposition. Land before commanders can regroup. Destroy launch systems before they can disperse. Collapse the enemy's decision cycle until every option becomes a worse failure than the last. And that principle shaped the training. Infantry units ran trench clearing and bunker clearing drills in full battle gear until exhaustion set in, and then kept going. Machine gun teams rehearsed suppression lanes. Snipers practiced coastal overwatch missions. Recon Marines worked infiltration routes under darkness, identifying observation points and landing zones. Combat engineers drilled rapid obstacle reduction, breach lane creation, and demolition of captured systems. Air-naval gunfire liaison teams practiced calling in fires under simulated electronic disruption. Medical battalions ran mass casualty scenarios with smoke, noise, darkness, and chaos layered into every drill. Logistics forces had their own war to fight. A strike package means nothing if it outruns its fuel, burns through ammunition, or loses tempo waiting for parts. So logistics Marines trained to keep frontline forces alive and moving for at least 72 hours without external resupply. Fuelers, transport crews, mechanics, warehouse teams, and supply officers rehearsed as intensely as the assault units. War is won by movement, firepower, and endurance, and the Marines were building all three. As dusk settled over the Gulf, Brigadier General Lang stepped out onto the flight line. Another wave of MV-22 Ospreys thundered into the darkening sky for night drills. Crew chiefs signaled across the deck. A CH-53K loaded heavy gear for a simulated insertion. Marines in full combat load moved with focused speed between aircraft. Lang stopped near a group of younger Marines, tightening straps and securing cargo. He spoke without dramatics, but every word landed. If Iran chooses escalation, you will be the force that finishes this fight. You will be the force that opens Hormuz for the world. Train hard tonight. Train as if everything depends on it. Because right now, it does. Night fell completely, but the Marine Corps did not slow down. Amphibious ships held readiness conditions. Pilots stood by near aircraft. Fire direction centers stayed lit. Artillery crews remained within sprint distance of their guns. Command posts tracked new intelligence feeds and maritime patterns in silence, broken only by short updates and coded confirmations. The message to Iran was no longer subtle. Push any further, and the response will not be measured in warnings. It will be measured in destroyed launch sites, shattered coastal infrastructure, seized terrain, and the reopening of the waterway under superior force. Inside the command center, the operational map shifted again as unit icons updated across the screen. Marine elements held assigned positions. Naval escorts maintained patrol sectors. Air support remained on call. Lang studied the display for several seconds, then turned to his senior operations officer. "Every package is ready," he said quietly. "If they push, we push back. Harder, faster, and smarter. The Strait of Hormuz will be opened by whatever means are necessary, and it will remain open." Beyond the military sphere, the entire world was watching. Shipping companies kept tankers at anchor or rerouted them to safer holding zones. Energy markets reacted to every rumor. Insurance rates climbed. Governments urged restraint while privately preparing contingency plans. Everyone understood the same reality. If Hormuz closes, even briefly, the shock would not remain in the Gulf. It would hit fuel markets, trade routes, supply chains, and political systems across continents. That is why the American posture in the region had become so explicit. This was no longer only about deterrence. It was about credibility. If one of the world's most important maritime choke points could be threatened without consequence, the strategic message would echo far beyond Iran. So the Marines prepared not just to answer escalation, but to end it. Any additional Iranian move, another minefield, another swarm, another missile barrage, another attempt to blockade traffic, could trigger a counterstrike of such precision and scale that the military balance in the strait would shift permanently toward secure navigation. The Marines now standing watch were highly trained, fully equipped, mentally prepared, and connected to a plan built for speed, dominance, and finality. Their ships were loaded, their aircraft were fueled, their guns were calibrated, their objectives were known. Now, the next move belonged to Iran. But in the darkness over the Gulf, the American answer was already waiting. Waiting on carrier decks, waiting in briefing rooms, waiting in missile tubes. Waiting behind folded rotors and sealed orders. Waiting in the minds of Marines who had rehearsed every landing, every breach, every strike, and every mile of contested ground between open water and enemy fire. If Iran chooses the path of escalation, the United States Marine Corps is positioned to deliver the counterstrike that could break the threat for good, reopen the vital waters of Hormuz, and send a message that no hostile power can close one of the world's most important waterways without paying a devastating price.